Welcome back to the second part of the fair wear and tear episode, where we're trying to understand what a landlord can and cannot deduct from a deposit. And in this episode we'll carry on talking through some of the issues so that by the end you have a better and clearer understanding. Welcome to the All Things Property podcast with me, Simon Bacon of Preferential Properties. Every week Ian Sadler and I will delve into all things property. We'll guide you through with friendly, no-nonsense advice. We've talked about the inventory, so in terms of, in order to even start that process, what have you got to have at the beginning of the tenancy? An
inventory and schedule of conditions.
Yeah, absolutely. So
with photographs.
Yeah, and how many times? Again, I'm being contentious, but how many times? Provocative, yes. How many times has a landlord said to you, and I'm not just talking about now, I'm talking about in your vast experience of managing properties, where a landlord has said to you, here's my inventory, I've done it for you, it's on an A4 sheet of paper, and they've gone curtains to bedroom, carpet to bedroom.
I'd resist the urge to laugh and then explain why he needed something more detailed.
Yeah. And I've had that recently, so this isn't something that, maybe happened 5 or 10 years ago, but even recently I had, I don't want to say too much, a property where a landlord had spent a lot of money refurbishing it with a view to selling.
I know this one, I've heard it before.
Yeah, didn't want to sell it, couldn't sell it, so rented it out. And when I said to him, we're going to need an inventory, and he said, his comment was, what, are you going to document how many walls and windows it's got? And that, to me, is a fundamental of why an inventory is so important, because how can you have a discussion around fair wear and tear and identify that, or even damage, if you haven't got the inventory to start with that is detailed? And photographs help with that.
Massively.
Okay. So you said that you'd taken advice from somebody recently. How do adjudicators assess disputes? Have you had any? How have they adjudicated? How have they reached their decisions?
Well, I don't want to blow smoke, but I've only ever had 2 cases raised against me, and neither case did the tenant submit any evidence.
Really? What, because you're too old, or?
No, because I'm not too old.
Okay. Right. It's just that you said they raised disputes about you. Was that an age
with
dispute?
Me?
Oh, with you.
About the move-out report.
Okay, fair enough.
But that was more a case of indignation. When push came to shove, they either couldn't be bothered or had no evidence to put down.
You didn't, or they didn't?
They didn't.
They didn't.
No, I submitted reams of it.
Yeah.
All loads of photographs.
Yeah. I don't know. Sometimes it feels wrong to me that, tenants can dispute with no
grounds,
with no implications or no grounds. Yes. But going back to how do adjudicators, what do they look at?
I think, as you said earlier, age of property, number of occupants, length of tenancy.
It's very matter of fact, isn't it? It's
they'll have a tick
what
box.
Evidence have you got? What evidence has both parties got of before? What evidence have they got after? What costs are they seeking? And are those costs proportionate and fair and reasonable?
Yeah, and what complicates the matter is people's moods and personalities, isn't it?
Yeah. And often, you I suppose it's like anything, isn't it, that people's emotions get in the way.
People don't like to accept responsibility nowadays, generally throughout life.
Yeah.
I find, as an old git.
Cleaning's another one, isn't it, where people's perception of people's standard of cleaning can range from really good to really poor.
Well, I'm sure you send a checklist. Do you send a checklist?
Yeah, we do.
Move out notes?
Yeah.
Detailing absolutely everything, wiping down skirting boards, it's all there in black and white, isn't it?
Yeah.
If it's not done, then but once again you'll go back to, well, can you prove the condition
Yeah.
at the start?
So again, one of those things for perhaps landlords to take on board, that as letting agents we do produce these checklists for tenants when they move out. So again, if you're having to deal with it and want to get in touch and get a copy of a tenant's checklist for when a tenant moves out of property, do get in touch, and again you'll find the link in our web podcast even. So feel free to access that. So what are common landlord mistakes when claiming deductions?
Managing their expectations.
They'll often claim more, won't they? They'll often think they can claim for more than something.
I think most people are fairly reasonable, but it's once again, it's personalities, isn't it? People have different expectations.
What about common tenant misunderstandings? What excuses or what reasons has a tenant come up with?
It was too wet to cut the garden 2 weeks before I left.
Okay.
The oven was cleaner after I left than when I moved in.
Yeah. And anything else?
A long list.
Length of stay? I've been in there a long time.
I've been here a long time, you should expect. And there's an element of truth in that. If they're there 5 years, I would generally recommend a minor refurbishment of a property.
So, good point. I'm going to challenge you on that.
Go on then.
I've been in the property for 5 years.
Have you?
No. A tenant says, I've been in the property for 5 years, therefore you shouldn't be making any deductions against my deposit.
That's
yes,
rubbish.
But you've put a hole in the wall, or you've caused a dent in the wall, or a door is hanging off its hinges. What would you say to that?
I would say a hole is a hole.
Yeah, damage is damage, whether you've been in there for 6 months or whether you've been in there for 8 years.
The length of your tenancy doesn't mitigate your damage,
No.
the damage done to the property.
What it does mitigate is wear and tear.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay. Now, let's move on to betterment. What's your understanding? What does betterment mean to you? This is a common one that often tenants will talk about, landlords will talk about, and the adjudicator will mention in their report. So, what does betterment mean?
Damage to a wall, let's say, use that as an example, and landlords taking the opportunity to improve the property, the condition of the property at the tenant's expense.
Okay, in words of 2 syllables, without a load of waffle.
That was about
What's
it, wasn't
betterment?
it? Tom understood that.
Really?
Oh.
Okay. Well, for those that didn't understand it, let me explain what betterment means in maybe 5 or 6 words.
Limited.
Betterment is not upgrading at a tenant's expense. Much more succinct, I feel. So, what does that mean, though, for landlords?
Well, apart from taking advantage of a situation, they're not allowed to do it.
What's replacement got to be? Like for like? Can they upgrade it?
Of course they can't upgrade it.
Well, they can, but they can't get the cost back, can
No.
they? That's the difference. Landlords can't upgrade at a tenant's expense. So, you can go from £20 a square metre carpet to a £30 a square metre carpet, but that would be classed as betterment.
Isn't that common sense?
Not necessarily, no.
How can anybody expect to get away with that?
But it's not necessarily that landlords expect to get away with it. I think tenants sometimes feel that they're being asked to pay for somebody bettering a property. So it's a real balance, isn't it? That what an adjudicator will look for when we come back to that fair wear and tear policy is it's got to be of a similar standard to what was there at the beginning when assessing what a cost is.
Right.
A landlord can better a property, but they can't use the having to upgrade it because of damage as a reason for, or to expect the cost of that betterment to be met.
Agreed.
Okay. Cleaning. Do you put addendums in your agreements for things like having ovens professionally cleaned, or?
No, because based on what you said earlier about carpets, yeah, you can't put a clause in there that says you must have your carpets professionally cleaned, because then it puts an obligation on the end of a previous tenancy to have them professionally cleaned, so at the start of theirs. So with an oven, photographs generally, 2 or 3 photographs.
Okay, why don't you get your ovens professionally cleaned when the tenant moves in?
Because they don't all need it. If they need it, then I will.
But how can you then make sure that the oven is, in really good standard when, isn't that, would you not say that's an easy...
It's so bloody difficult to, there are so many levels of expectations and standards here.
Yeah.
If
I'm not saying
an ideal
wrong or
situation
right.
is you get, an oven is, whether you get it or it's whatever happens, it gets clean and pristine, which isn't difficult, 50, 60 quid to do an oven, but it is spotless. They use all those chemicals. Should that be done at the start of every tenancy?
Well,
and who does it?
If you have it done at the beginning of a tenancy...
Who does it? Who pays for it?
The landlord. The landlord is presenting the property to a new
After
tenant.
initial tenancy?
No, at the beginning of the tenancy. So, if your landlord gets the oven professionally cleaned, ready for the new tenant to move into, so the first time they ever let
Okay, well that's different, isn't it? I'm talking about consecutive tenancies where you get standards are different again. So you might get somebody who thinks the oven is pristine. You might get somebody who thinks it's not.
Yeah, but having it professionally cleaned, an oven professionally cleaned at the beginning of a tenancy, if the landlord meets that cost once, they should never then have to meet that cost again, ever. So would you not say, for giving advice to landlords, the better you get your properties to start with, the more chance you've got of getting them back in a good standard at the end, because the tenant can, get the oven really dirty, but if it's been professionally cleaned and you have an addendum that says that the oven, hob and extractor fan will be professionally cleaned, was professionally cleaned and must be professionally cleaned at the end of the tenancy, there is no, from an adjudication perspective, there is absolutely no grey area. Yeah.
It's twice you've done that.
And I suppose that's where I try and encourage my landlords to prevent those grey areas causing disputes later on. And what does it cost to have an oven cleaned? 80 quid. The oven, the extractor and the hob, 80 or 90 quid. Good investment, I would have said.
Until you get to a stage at the end of your first tenancy where the tenant says, well, that's clean enough for me.
Yeah. Did they professionally clean it? Your tenancy said you have to professionally clean it and produce receipts.
Professionally cleaned. My mum did it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's, I've heard that.
Mm-hmm.
So which then comes back to, when we talk about fair wear and tear, what can a landlord deduct from a deposit, is it fair wear and tear or is it damage? And you could argue, well, I've used the oven, so it's wear and tear. I've been in here 3 years, my oven's a bit dirty, I've used it. You have an addendum that says carpets will be professionally cleaned, or the oven will be professionally cleaned at the end of the tenancy because it was at the beginning of the tenancy, then I've yet to have a dispute where that's been thrown out. How do you avoid disputes altogether? What's the one thing you can do, do you reckon?
Follow Simon's practices.
No, sensible, Ian. Giving instructions to people again. What would you say is the best way to avoid disputes altogether?
A detailed inventory.
Another way you look at me is if to say, am I saying the right thing here?
Exactly why I looked at you like that.
Going back to everything we talk about in our podcasts, it is communication, making sure you set very clear expectations at the start, documentation, making sure you've got an inventory and photographs where you can of conditions of stuff, because all what that does is it's very hard then to you're trying to take the emotion out of it. It's very hard for someone to go, here's a photograph of a an oven that's been professionally cleaned at the beginning. This was the oven at the end, which I cleaned but didn't have it professionally cleaned. You'll be able to see a difference. So to sum up this episode around fair wear and tear and what landlords can deduct from a deposit, if you can't evidence a condition at the start, it's very difficult to claim at the end. It all comes back to proof. And what I have said is, if you want a copy of our checklist, then please, the link will be there. Do give us a call or print it off. Thank you. Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of the All Things Property podcast. If you found this episode useful, don't forget to subscribe, like and share. These things really help us reach the people who need to hear this advice. See you next week.